The
Hi.
metal of the badge was cold in my palm. It was heavier than I remembered, or maybe my hands were just weaker. We can't have a dirty cop on the force, Ryan. Captain Miller didn't even have the decency to look me in the eye. He just stared at the file on his desk, the one filled with fabricated evidence and Jessica's venomous, tear-filled testimony. My ex-girlfriend. The woman I'd planned a future with. The same woman I'd found in our bed with a senior detective from the narcotics division. My mistake wasn't catching her, it was confronting them. 2 days later, a locker search turned up a suspiciously large bag of evidence-grade narcotics. My locker. My career, my reputation, my life, all of it went up in smoke. I'm innocent, I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. That's what they all say, Miller grunted, finally sliding my termination papers across the desk. I didn't bother to argue further. The system I had sworn to uphold had already tried and convicted me. I signed the papers, dropped the badge and my service weapon on the desk, and walked out without looking back. The precinct felt like a foreign country. Officers I'd known for years, men and women I'd taken bullets for, averted their gazes. Whispers followed me like a disease. The city air was thick with humidity and the promise of a storm as I stepped outside. I didn't have a car anymore, it was in Jessica's name. So I walked. The rain began to fall, a cold drizzle that soaked through my thin jacket, but I barely noticed. Each step was a nail in the coffin of my old life. Ryan Sterling, decorated officer, son of a cop, a man who believed in black and white. Now, I was just a man walking in the rain, drowning in a world of gray. The walk home was long, cutting through the less savory parts of the city I used to patrol. I knew these streets, their secrets, their dangers. Tonight, I was just another piece of driftwood in their grimy currents. A scream, sharp and terrified, cut through the drone of the rain and traffic. It came from a narrow alley up ahead, a dark mob between two crumbling brick buildings. The cop in me, the part they couldn't strip away with papers and lies, reacted instantly. My legs were moving before my brain could argue, pulling me toward the sound of distress. I slowed as I neared the alley's entrance, my instincts taking over. I peered around the graffiti-covered brick wall. Under the weak glow of a flickering security light, I saw them. 3 men, all dressed in immaculate black suits that seemed to repel the rain. They weren't just men, they moved with a predatory grace that was deeply unsettling. They had a girl cornered against a dumpster. She was small, petite, with skin so pale it seemed to glow in the dim light. Her hair was the most striking thing I'd ever seen, a cascade of pure, shimmering silver. She looked terrified, weak, her slight frame trembling. "The princess will come with us," one of the men said, his voice a low, chilling hiss. "House Umbra demands it." Princess? House Umbra? It sounded like something out of a fantasy novel. But the fear on the girl's face was real. The menace from the men was palpable. "I will not be a pawn in your games," she replied, her voice soft but laced with a surprising thread of defiance. One of the men laughed, a sound like grinding stone, and reached for her. That was it. I couldn't stand by. "Hey," I shouted, stepping out from behind the wall. "Leave her alone." 3 sets of eyes snapped to me. They weren't normal eyes. In the dim light, I could have sworn they glowed with a faint, predatory red. "A human," the leader sneered. "Playing the hero." "Walk away, little man," another one said. "This is not your concern." My hand instinctively went to my hip where my weapon used to be. It was a ghost limb now. I was unarmed, unemployed, and utterly out of my depth. But I saw the girl's eyes, wide with fear, and I couldn't back down. "I'm making it my concern," I said, raising my fists. It was a stupid, suicidal gesture. These guys were not ordinary thugs. The leader sighed dramatically. "Kill him. Make it quick." The one on the right moved. He didn't run, he blurred. One moment he was 10 feet away, the next he was on me, a fist aimed at my face. I tried to bring up a block, the muscle memory from years of training kicking in. But I was too slow. I braced for the impact, for the shattering of bone, for the end. The blow never landed. A strange warmth flooded my body, starting from my chest and spreading like wildfire through my veins. It was a feeling of pure, unadulterated power. The world seemed to slow down. I could see the man's fist crawling toward my face, every detail sharp and clear. I saw the smug curl of his lip, the red glint in his eyes. Without thinking, I moved. My hand came up, not in a clumsy block, but with impossible speed, catching his wrist in a grip of iron. He grunted in surprise, his eyes widening. I felt something in my arm, a density, a strength that wasn't mine. I squeezed. There was a sickening crunch of bone. The man screamed, a high-pitched, inhuman sound, and tried to pull away. I didn't let him. I twisted his arm, using his momentum against him, and slammed him into the brick wall. The impact was like a car crash. Cracks spider-webbed through the bricks. He slumped to the ground, a broken mess. The other two stared, their arrogance replaced by shock. What are you?" the leader hissed. I didn't know. I was as stunned as they were. I looked at my hands. They were trembling, but not from fear. They were humming with a strange, dark energy. The second man charged, pulling a wicked-looking blade from his jacket. Again, the world slowed. I saw the arc of the blade, the intent in his eyes. I sidestepped the thrust easily, my body moving with a grace I'd never possessed. I chopped down on his extended arm, and his own momentum snapped the bone at the elbow. He howled in agony, dropping the knife. I kicked him in the chest, and he flew backward, skipping off the wet pavement like a stone before crashing into the dumpster. The leader was left, standing alone. He looked from his fallen comrades to me, then to the girl. A look of dawning horror crossed his face. "The oath," he whispered, his voice trembling. "The Guardian's oath has been awakened." He gave me one last look, a mixture of terror and hatred, before turning and vanishing into the shadows with impossible speed. Silence descended on the alley, broken only by the rain and the groans of the two men I had taken down. I stood there, breathing heavily, trying to process what had just happened. The warmth in my veins began to recede, leaving me feeling strangely hollow. I looked at the devastation I'd caused. A man embedded in a brick wall, another crumpled against a dumpster. My hands weren't bruised, my knuckles weren't even scraped. It was impossible. Then I remembered the girl. I turned, and she was staring at me, her silver eyes wide. Her fear was gone, replaced by something else. Awe. And something deeper, something I couldn't read. "Are you all right?" I asked, my voice hoarse. She took a hesitant step forward. "You are my guardian," she said, her voice a melodic whisper. "You're what?" I asked, confused. "Look, I don't know what just happened, but we need to call the police." She gave a small, sad smile. "They cannot help us. Those guys will be waking up soon," I insisted, my cop brain trying to reassert control over a situation that made no sense. "We need to go." She nodded. "Yes, we must." She walked toward me, moving with an elegance that seemed out of place in this grimy alley. She stopped just in front of me and reached out a delicate, pale hand. Instinctively, I flinched back. "Do not be afraid," she said softly. "You saved me. You are bound to me now." "Bound to you? What are you talking about?" "The power you felt," she explained, her silver eyes holding mine. "It is a reflection of my own bloodline. The oath of the Guardian is an ancient rite, a bond forged when a mortal shows selfless courage in the defense of a royal of my kind." My mind was reeling. Royal? Bloodline? Oath? Your kind? I managed to choke out. She looked at me, her expression serious. "My name is Serafina Nocturne," she said. "And I am what your people call a vampire." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. For her to laugh and say it was all some elaborate prank. But her gaze was unwavering, her crimson eyes deadly serious. Vampire. The word hung in the air, absurd and terrifying. I looked at the men I had effortlessly broken. I looked at the impossible speed and strength I had just displayed. It was insane. It was impossible. But it was the only explanation that fit the facts. "You're a vampire," I repeated, the words feeling foreign on my tongue. She nodded slowly. "And you, Ryan Sterling, are now my sworn protector." One of the downed men groaned, starting to stir. Serafina's gaze hardened. "We must leave. Now," she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. She grabbed my hand. Her skin was cool, but not cold, and surprisingly strong. She pulled me out of the alley and into the rain-swept street. "Where are we going?" I asked, my mind still trying to catch up. "Somewhere safe. They will hunt us," she said, her silver hair whipping in the wind. "House Umbra will not forgive this insult." I was being hunted by something called House Umbra because I was now the sworn protector of a vampire princess. The absurdity of it was almost comical. Hours ago, my biggest problem was losing my job. Now, I was in a real-life horror movie. We moved through the city's underbelly, Serafina leading the way with an unerring sense of direction. She avoided main streets, sticking to the shadows, moving with a silence that was unnatural. I, on the other hand, was clumsy, my heavy footsteps echoing in the quiet alleys. "You are loud," she commented without looking back. "Sorry," I grumbled. "I'm used to wearing police-issue boots, not having a supernatural bond." She stopped in front of a derelict old hotel. The sign, the Starlight Grand, barely legible through the grime. "Here," she said. "This will do for now." The lobby was a wreck of faded glamour, dust motes dancing in the slivers of moonlight piercing the boarded-up windows. It smelled of decay and forgotten memories. Serafina seemed perfectly at home. She led me up a grand, creaking staircase to a suite on the top floor. The room was cleaner than the lobby, as if someone had been maintaining it. It had a certain Gothic elegance, with heavy velvet curtains and dark carved furniture. "How did you know about this place?" I asked, watching as she lit a few candles, bathing the room in a soft, flickering glow. "My family has owned this property for 2 centuries," she replied simply. "We have sanctuaries all over the world." I sank into a plush armchair, the exhaustion of the night finally hitting me. My head was spinning. "So, this is my life now?" I asked, looking at her. "Bodyguard to a vampire?" "A princess," she corrected gently. "And yes, the oath is unbreakable. Your life is now intrinsically linked to mine." "What does that even mean?" "It means you are stronger, faster, and more resilient than any human," she explained, her red eyes studying me intently. "Your senses are heightened. You can draw upon the inherent power of my bloodline." The power I felt, that was from you? "A fraction of it," she confirmed. "A taste of what it means to be a guardian. When you acted to protect me, with no thought for your own life, the ancient magic recognized your worthiness. The bond was forged." I ran a hand through my wet hair, trying to make sense of it all. "So those guys, they were vampires too?" "Yes. From a rival house. House Umbra. They are ruthless, power-hungry. They have been trying to force a union with my house, House Nocturne, for decades. Kidnapping me was their latest, most brazen attempt." "A union?" "A political marriage. To consolidate power." I refused, so they resorted to cruder methods. I thought about the men I'd taken down. "Will they die?" Serafina shook her head. "No. Our kind is not so easily dispatched. They will heal. And they will report back to their master, Lord Valerius. And he'll send more. It wasn't a question. He will send legions," she said, her voice grim. "They will not stop until they have me, or until you are dead." A bitter laugh escaped my lips. "Great. Just great. My life was already in the toilet, why not flush it completely?" I stood up and paced the room, a caged animal. "Look, princess, I appreciate the superpowers, but this is way above my pay grade." "My non-existent pay grade." "I understand this is overwhelming," she said, her composure unshakable. "Overwhelming is finding out your girlfriend is cheating on you. This is a complete psychotic break." I stopped pacing and faced her. "Why me? I'm nobody. A disgraced cop who just lost everything." Her expression softened. "The oath does not choose the powerful or the privileged. It chooses the noble of heart. In your moment of greatest despair, you saw an injustice and acted. You showed courage when you had nothing to gain and everything to lose. That is why it chose you." Her words struck a chord deep inside me. Noble of heart. Nobody had called me that in a long time. Maybe ever. I looked at this ancient, powerful being in the form of a delicate girl, and for the first time that night, the frantic panic in my chest began to subside. It was replaced by a strange, unfamiliar feeling. Purpose. My old life was over. Dead and buried. Maybe this was what came next. "Okay," I said, taking a deep breath. "Okay, Serafina. What's the plan?" A small, genuine smile touched her lips. "The plan is simple, Ryan Sterling. We survive. And then, we fight back." The next few days were a crash course in the supernatural. Serafina was a patient teacher, though her methods were unorthodox. "Your newfound strength is raw, uncontrolled," she said on the first morning, as sunlight struggled to pierce the thick curtains. You are a hammer when you need to be a scalpel. I did okay in the alley, I countered, still sore from sleeping in the armchair. You were lucky. You were running on instinct and raw power. Against a trained Umbra warrior, you would have been dispatched in seconds. She explained the world she came from. The kindred, as they called themselves, had existed in the shadows for millennia. The great houses, like Nocturne and Umbra, were the aristocracy, powerful lineages with vast resources and ancient rivalries. House Nocturne was old and respected, valuing tradition and a delicate balance with the human world. House Umbra was aggressive, expansionist, believing in the supremacy of the kindred. Valerius, the leader of House Umbra, wants to shatter the masquerade, she explained, her voice low. He believes we should rule, not hide. Quote, and marrying you would give him the legitimacy he needs to challenge the other houses, I finished, the political maneuvering sounding disturbingly familiar. Precisely. Our training began in the hotel's cavernous, empty ballroom. The bond allows you to channel my blood's vitae, she said. Focus. Feel the energy within you. It is a part of you now. I closed my eyes and tried. I felt the familiar warmth humming beneath my skin. Now, draw it out. Manifest it. Manifest it how? Will it into existence. Give it form. I focused on my hand, imagining the energy coalescing. I pictured a shield, like the riot shield I used to carry. A faint, shimmering black mist swirled around my forearm, then dissipated. Pathetic, she stated flatly. Hey, I'm new to this. Again. For hours, I tried. The most I could manage was a flicker of dark energy. My frustration grew with each failure. I can't do this, I finally said, slumping against a pillar. You are thinking like a human, Serafina said, approaching me. You are trying to force it. The power is not a tool you wield, it is an extension of you. Do not command it. Guide it. She stood before me, her crimson eyes seeming to peer into my soul. What was your greatest strength as an officer? She asked unexpectedly. I don't know, I mumbled. My aim, I guess. No. Think deeper. I thought about my record, the commendations. Investigation. Reading a scene. Finding details others missed. Exactly, she said. You observe. You analyze. You see the connections. Do not try to be a brute, Ryan. Be what you are. Use your senses, she instructed. The bond has amplified them. Close your eyes. I did as she said. Listen, she whispered. At first, I heard only the creaks of the old hotel. Then, I focused, and the world of sound expanded. I could hear the drip of a leaky pipe 3 floors below. The scuttling of a rat in the walls. The frantic beat of a pigeon's heart as it sat on the roof. I could hear the rain on the street outside, each individual drop hitting the pavement. And I could hear her. The whisper soft rustle of her dress. The impossibly slow, steady rhythm of her heart. Thump, thump, a sound of immense age and power. What do you hear? She asked. Everything, I breathed, stunned. Now, open your eyes. The ballroom was no longer dim and shadowed. It was illuminated with a strange, silvery light, every detail crisp and defined. I could see the individual threads in the decaying tapestries, the fine layer of dust on the grand piano. Serafina stood before me, and I saw her as if for the first time. The intricate patterns in her crimson irises, the faint, almost invisible tracery of veins beneath her pale skin. She was terrifyingly beautiful. This is how we see the world, she said. It's a lot. You will adapt. Now, try again. Do not think of a clumsy shield. Think of what you need. Be precise. I closed my eyes again, focusing on the hum of power inside me. This time, I didn't try to build a wall. I thought about the knife in the alley. The speed of the attack. I needed something small, fast, defensive. I imagined the energy flowing down my arm, not into a big shape, but into a thin, hard layer over my skin. A gauntlet. I opened my eyes. My right hand and forearm were encased in a construct of solid, semi-transparent black energy. It felt weightless, but utterly solid. I clenched my fist, and the gauntlet mirrored the movement perfectly. A slow smile spread across Serafina's face. Better. That night, she brought me food. A bag of groceries from a 24-hour convenience store. You still need to eat, she said, placing it on the table. It was a strange moment of domesticity in our insane situation. You don't? I asked, pulling out a sandwich. My needs are different, she said, her eyes distant. She produced a small, ornate silver flask from her coat. I came prepared. I didn't ask what was in it. I didn't want to know. We ate in silence for a while. We can't stay here forever, I said finally. They'll find us. I know, she replied. We need resources. Allies. Information. I might know a guy, I said, thinking of my old informant, a conspiracy nut named Silas who lived off the grid. He's not exactly stable, but he sees and hears things no one else does. Serafina considered this. A human? Yeah, but he's different. He's always been obsessed with the shadow government and things that go bump in the night. Maybe he's not as crazy as I thought. She gave a slight nod. It is a risk, but we have few options. Tomorrow, we find your friend. Silas lived in the basement of a condemned comic book shop. The entrance was hidden behind a dumpster in the back alley. I knocked a specific rhythm on the reinforced steel door. A small slot slid open, and a pair of paranoid eyes peered out. Sterling? What the hell are you doing here? Heard you got the boot. Heard you went dirty. It's a long story, Silas, I said. I need your help. Help costs. And you look broke, the voice rasped. I'm good for it. This is important. The eyes shifted from me to Serafina, who stood silently in the shadows behind me. Who's the ghost? Silas asked. She's with me, I said. Let us in. There was a long pause, then a series of clicks as multiple locks were disengaged. The door swung inward, and we stepped into Silas's bunker. The room was a chaotic mess of computer monitors, servers, and conspiracy boards covered in yarn and newspaper clippings. Silas was a wiry man with frantic energy, his thin hair sticking up in all directions. He looked me up and down. You look like hell, man. I feel like it, I admitted. He then turned his full attention to Serafina. His usual manic demeanor vanished, replaced by a look of utter awe. My God, he whispered. You're one of them. Serafina raised a delicate eyebrow. One of whom? The others. The Fae. The Night Folk. I knew it. I knew you were real, he exclaimed, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and excitement. I stared at him. Silas, what are you talking about? I've seen the signs for years, he said, gesturing wildly at his boards. Unsolved disappearances, strange energy readings, corporate shells buying up blood banks. It all connects. He pointed to one board, where several photos were tacked up. They were blurry, long lens shots of men in dark suits, just like the ones who attacked us. Underneath them was a corporate logo, Umbra Corp. These guys, Silas said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. They're the front. Real estate, private security, pharmaceuticals. But it's a cover. They're hunters. Serafina stepped forward, her gaze fixed on the board. You have been tracking them. For years, Silas confirmed. They're bad news. Moving in the shadows, consolidating power. I thought they were some deep state wetworks team. But you're something else entirely. We need to know what they're planning, I said, getting to the point. What's their next move? Silas scurried over to a computer, his fingers flying across the keyboard. I've been hacking their internal servers for months. It's mostly encrypted corporate drone stuff, but I pulled a few interesting tidbits. He brought up a file. It was a shipping manifest. They're moving something. Something big. It's coming into the city docks tonight. What is it? Serafina asked, her voice laced with urgency. It's codenamed, the Sanguine Heart, Silas said, reading from the screen. Whatever it is, it's being transported in a cryostasis container with a lead-lined core. Heavy-duty stuff. Serafina's face went pale. Paler than usual. The Sanguine Heart, she whispered, her voice filled with disbelief and horror. It can't be. You know what that is? I asked. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a new level of fear. It is an artifact of immense power, she said. A heart of a long-dead progenitor vampire, preserved in crystal. It is said that whoever performs the correct ritual with it can command the loyalty of all lesser kindred. They can become a god. A god. The word echoed in the cluttered basement. Valerius doesn't just want to break the masquerade, Serafina said, piecing it together. He wants to enslave our entire species, with himself as the absolute ruler. And with an army of vampires under his command, the human world would be next on the menu, I added grimly. We have to stop him, she stated. Stop him? Lady, we're talking about a secret society of vampires and a magic artifact, Silas chimed in, wringing his hands. How are two people supposed to stop that? We're going to intercept that shipment, I said, my mind already working, falling back into the familiar patterns of a police raid. Tonight. Silas paled. The docks? That's Umbra turf. They have dozens of guys there, all armed. You'll be walking into a meat grinder. We don't have a choice, Serafina insisted. If Valerius gets his hands on the heart, the war is over before it begins. I looked at the plans Silas had pulled up for the Port Authority. He's right, we can't go in guns blazing. Or, fists glowing. We need a diversion, Serafina mused. I can do better than that, Silas said, a manic gleam in his eyes. I can give you chaos. He spun around to another terminal. The dock's entire security system, from cameras to container cranes, is all on one network. A ridiculously hackable one, I might add. I can trigger alarms, move containers, create a ghost in the machine that will have them chasing their tails. That gives us an opening, I said, a plan forming. We get in, locate the container, and get it out of there. Get it out how? Serafina asked. We cannot carry a cryostasis unit. I pointed at the manifest on the screen. It's being loaded onto an armored truck for transport to an Umbra facility. We don't steal the container. We steal the truck. Silas grinned. I like it. It's crazy. It's suicidal. It's perfect. We'll need a way to communicate, I said. Silas produced two small, flesh-colored earpieces. Military grade. Encrypted line. I'll be your eye in the sky. I can see you through the cameras and guide you. The plan was insane. It was reckless. It was the only shot we had. As we prepared to leave, Silas pulled me aside. Be careful, Sterling, he said, his usual paranoia replaced with genuine concern. This ain't like busting some street-level dealer. These things, they're monsters. I know, I said. And her, he nodded toward Serafina. She's one of them too. Don't forget that. I looked at Serafina, who was watching us with her unnervingly perceptive gaze. I remembered her fear when she mentioned the sanguine heart. Her determination to stop Valerius. She's not like them, I said, more to convince myself than him. We left Silas's basement and stepped back out into the night. The city felt different now. The shadows seemed deeper, the night held more secrets. My old life was a distant memory. I was no longer a cop. I was a guardian. And tonight, we were going to war. The docks were a labyrinth of stacked shipping containers, a steel jungle under the sickly orange glow of sodium lamps. The air was heavy with the smell of salt, rust, and diesel. We were perched on a rooftop overlooking Pier 7, where the Umbra operation was centered. I see them, I whispered into the earpiece. At least 20, maybe 30 armed guards. They moved with military precision, forming a tight perimeter around a specific refrigerated container. That's our target, Silas's voice crackled in my ear. The manifest confirms it. The truck is en route, ETA 10 minutes. They're too concentrated, Serafina observed from beside me. We'll never get through that cordon. That's where I come in, Silas said. Get ready. Operation Kick the Anthill is a go. On the other side of the pier, a massive container crane whirred to life. It lifted a 40-foot container high into the air, its shadow sweeping over the guards. They looked up, confused. Then, the crane's magnetic lock disengaged. The container, weighing several tons, plunged downward, smashing into a stack of other containers with a deafening, metallic shriek. It was like a bomb going off. Alarms started blaring across the entire dockyard. What was that? One of the guards shouted. System malfunction. Silas's voice boomed over the pier's PA system, distorted and robotic. Evacuate Pier 4 immediately. Half the guards broke formation, running toward the chaos. Phase 1 complete, Silas chuckled in our ears. Now, for Phase 2. Security gates started opening and closing at random. Lights flickered on and off. A forklift started up on its own and began driving in circles. The remaining guards were in disarray, shouting into their radios, trying to make sense of the technological poltergeist. That's our window, I said to Serafina. Let's move. We descended from the rooftop, using the deep shadows between container stacks as our cover. My senses were on fire. I could hear every shouted command, every panicked heartbeat. We moved with a speed and silence that was still new to me. Serafina was a phantom, a whisper in the dark. I was a shadow, my feet barely touching the ground. We reached the edge of the perimeter, hiding behind a large generator. The armored truck was pulling up to the target container. Only 5 guards remained, their attention divided between the truck and the chaos engulfing the rest of the docks. "We need to take them out," I whispered. Quickly and quietly. "I will take the 3 on the left," Serafina said. "I'll take the 2 on the right." I focused, drawing on the Vitae. The black energy flowed down my arms, but this time I didn't form gauntlets. I formed long, thin blades extending from my knuckles. Serafina glanced at them and gave an approving nod. "On my mark," I said. 3, 2, 1. We moved as one. Serafina was a blur of motion, a living shadow that flowed between the guards. There were no wasted movements, just silent, precise strikes. A hand to the throat, a twist of the neck. They fell without a sound, their lives extinguished before they knew what was happening. I was less elegant, but just as effective. I burst from the shadows, surprising the first guard. He tried to raise his rifle, but I was too fast. One of the shadow blades sliced through his weapon, and the other pierced his heart. The second guard spun around, his eyes wide with shock. I disarmed him with a sweep of my arm and knocked him unconscious with a single, precise blow to the temple. It was over in less than 5 seconds. The area was secure. "Silas, we're at the container," I said into the earpiece. "Copy that. The truck driver is getting out to supervise the loading. He's yours." The driver, a big, burly man, was barking orders at the crane operator. I circled around the truck. He didn't even see me coming. I grabbed him from behind, one hand over his mouth, and dragged him into the shadows. He was surprisingly strong, but I was stronger. "Don't make a sound and you'll live to see morning," I whispered in his ear. He nodded frantically. I tied and gagged him with his own belt and some zip ties I brought. "Driver's taken care of," I reported. "The Sanguine Heart is being loaded now," Silas said. "You've got about 60 seconds before they lock it down." Serafina was already at the truck's cab. "I can't drive this," she said, looking at the complex dashboard. "I can," I replied, climbing into the driver's seat. The familiar layout of a large vehicle was a small comfort in the midst of all this insanity. I hotwired the ignition, the engine rumbling to life. The heavy cryo container was locked into place on the trailer bed with a loud thud. "We're loaded," Silas's voice crackled. "But you've got company. More guards are coming back. About a dozen of them, and they look pissed. I saw them in the side mirror, running toward us, raising their rifles." "Hold on," I said to Serafina. I slammed the truck into gear and stomped on the accelerator. The armored truck lurched forward, its tires squealing on the wet asphalt. Bullets pinged harmlessly off the reinforced plating. "Silas, I need a way out of here," I yelled. "Main gate is blocked. Take a hard right at the next intersection. I'll open gate C for you. It leads to the industrial access road." I swerved the massive truck, smashing through a stack of empty pallets. 2 black SUVs appeared, pulling out from behind a warehouse, their headlights blinding me. They were fast, boxing me in. Men leaned out of the windows, firing automatic weapons at the tires. "They're trying to stop us," Serafina shouted. "They're going to have to try harder," I growled. I cranked the wheel, ramming the truck directly into the side of the lead SUV. The impact was tremendous. Metal screamed and twisted. The SUV was thrown aside like a toy, flipping over and exploding in a ball of fire. The second SUV swerved to avoid the wreckage. "Gate C is just ahead," Silas yelled. "I'm opening it now." I saw the heavy steel gate sliding open. I floored it, the truck roaring toward our escape route. We burst through the gate and onto the dark access road, leaving the chaos of the docks behind us. We had done it. We had stolen the Sanguine Heart right out from under their noses. But I knew this was just the beginning. House Umbra would unleash its full fury to get it back. We drove for hours, heading out of the city and into the sparsely populated countryside. I kept the truck off the main highways, sticking to back roads that Silas fed me through the earpiece. "Okay, I'm signing off," Silas finally said, his voice weary. "My systems are probably crawling with Umbra hackers by now. I need to scrub everything and go dark for a while. You're on your own." "Thanks for everything, Silas," I said, genuinely grateful. Stay safe. You too, Sterling. Don't get dead. The line went silent. Serafina had been quiet for most of the drive, staring out at the dark landscape. Where are we taking this thing? I asked her. There is a place, she said. An old nocturne sanctuary. A forgotten place in the mountains. It will be safe there. And then what? What do we do with a vampire artifact? We cannot destroy it, she said. Its power is too great. It would be like detonating a bomb. We must hide it, protect it. Ensure it never falls into Valerius's hands. The sun was beginning to rise as we reached the foothills of a mountain range. The dawn light seemed to pain Serafina. She retreated to the darkest corner of the cab, pulling her hood up. I found the turnoff she described, a barely there dirt track that wound its way up into the mountains. After another hour of rough driving, we arrived at our destination. It was an old, stone monastery, perched on a cliff edge, half reclaimed by nature. It looked like it had been abandoned for centuries. This is it? I asked, parking the truck in a large, crumbling courtyard. It is more than it appears, she said. We got out of the truck. The air here was clean and cold. Serafina placed her hand on the monastery's massive oak doors. Faint, silvery lines of energy spread from her palm, glowing for a moment before fading. The doors swung open with a deep groan, revealing not a dusty ruin, but a well-preserved, if ancient, interior. Blood magic, she explained. It only opens for those of my lineage. We now had a new problem. The sanguine heart was in a massive, heavy container on the back of a truck. How do we get that inside? I asked. We will have to open the container and move only the artifact itself, she said. We went to the back of the truck. The container was sealed with a complex electronic lock. Can you open this? I asked. She shook her head. It is shielded against my kind of influence. Then we do it the old-fashioned way, I said. I focused, forming the vitae into a pair of heavy, sledgehammer-like fists. I began pounding on the locking mechanism. The noise was deafening, echoing through the quiet mountains. It took nearly half an hour of relentless, exhausting work, but finally, the lock shattered. With a hiss of escaping cold air, the container doors swung open. Inside, nestled in a web of cryogenic tubes and wires, was a crystal casket about the size of a shoebox. And within the crystal, floating in a pale, glowing fluid, was a heart. It was black, petrified, yet it seemed to pulse with a faint, dark light. I could feel its power even from a few feet away, a low, malevolent hum that resonated in my bones. The sanguine heart, Serafina whispered in awe. Looks more like a lump of charcoal, I grumbled, though I couldn't deny the oppressive aura it gave off. We carefully disconnected the casket from the machinery and carried it inside the monastery. It was heavier than it looked. Serafina led me deep into the monastery's catacombs, to a central chamber with a large stone altar. She placed the casket upon it. It will be safe here, she said. The monastery's wards will shield its energy signature from the outside world. I leaned against a cold stone wall, the adrenaline from the heist finally wearing off, leaving me utterly drained. We had the artifact. We had a safe house. For the first time in days, we could breathe. Now what? I asked. Now, we plan our next move, she replied. Valerius has lost the heart, but he will not give up. He will redouble his efforts to find me. We have taken something from him. He will want to take something from us. Her words were prophetic. As if on cue, my phone, which had been silent for days, buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, not recognizing the number. Hesitantly, I answered. Hello? Ryan? Oh God, Ryan, is that you? My blood ran cold. It was Jessica. My ex. And she was crying. Jessica? How did you get this number? I asked, my voice hard. This was a burner phone Silas had given me. That doesn't matter, she sobbed. Ryan, you have to help me. I'm in trouble. I made a mistake. Serafina was watching me, her expression unreadable. What kind of trouble? I asked, my old instincts warring with my personal anger. I got involved with some bad people, she stammered. The man I was seeing. He's not who I thought he was. He's dangerous, Ryan. They're going to kill me. The man I'd found her with. The senior detective. Why are you calling me, Jessica? You framed me. You ruined my life. I know, and I'm so sorry, she cried. I was scared. He made me do it. He said he would ruin me, ruin us both if I didn't. He has evidence, Ryan, evidence that you were set up. He can clear your name. My mind was spinning. The one thing I wanted, my name cleared, was suddenly on the table. But the timing was too perfect. Too convenient. Where are you? I asked. I'm at the old cannery by the waterfront. Please, Ryan. He's coming for me. You're the only one I can trust. The line went dead. I stood there, the phone in my hand, my heart pounding. It is a trap, Serafina said, her voice calm and certain. I know, I said, my jaw tight. It's too obvious. You are not considering going, are you? I looked at her. She said they have evidence to clear my name. Your name in a world that no longer matters, Serafina countered. Your place is here, with me. This is your life now. I know that, I snapped, my frustration boiling over. But I can't just leave it. They dragged my family's name through the mud. It's the one thing I have left. I started pacing the chamber. Valerius is using her, Serafina stated. He knows she is your weakness. He is using your past to lure you out. And the detective she was with. He has to be connected to Umbra, I reasoned. A human agent, high up in the police force. That's how they knew where to plant the evidence. It's all connected. My personal and my supernatural life had just crashed into each other. If I go, I can get answers, I said. Maybe I can even get the evidence. And you will walk directly into their hands, she said. They will capture you and use you against me. I cannot allow it. So what? I'm your prisoner now, as well as your guardian? The moment the words left my mouth, I regretted them. A flicker of hurt crossed her ancient eyes. The oath is a bond, Ryan, not a cage, she said softly. I am trying to protect you. I took a deep breath, reining in my anger. I know. I'm sorry. I looked at the sanguine heart pulsing on the altar. They want this. And they want you. Using me is just a means to an end. So let's turn their trap against them. A glint of interest appeared in Serafina's eyes. What are you proposing? They're expecting me to walk in alone, desperate to clear my name. They're not expecting me to come prepared. They're not expecting you. A slow, dangerous smile spread across her lips. You are suggesting we walk into their trap. I'm suggesting we spring our own. We left the monastery under the cover of twilight, taking one of the sleek, black Umbra SUVs we'd acquired. It was much faster and less conspicuous than the armored truck. On the drive back to the city, we formulated a plan. They will expect me to enter through the front, I said. They'll have the place staked out, probably with snipers. I can deal with the external threats, Serafina said. I move best when unseen. Once you've cleared a path, I go in. Jessica is the bait, but the real target is the detective. He's the one with the evidence, the link between Umbra and the police force. I need to get to him. Valerius himself may be there, she warned. He will not entrust a matter this important to a mere subordinate. All the better, I growled. I've got a score to settle with him. As we neared the city's industrial waterfront, the abandoned cannery rose up like a skeletal beast against the night sky. Its windows were dark and broken, like vacant eyes. I parked the SUV a few blocks away, and we approached on foot, using the shadows of derelict warehouses for cover. I can sense them, Serafina whispered, her eyes scanning the area. There are two on the roof of the opposite building. Snipers. Can you get to them without being seen? She gave me a look that was almost pitying. Ryan, I am a creature of the night. They are children playing in my domain. She touched my arm. Be careful. Do not let your anger at the woman cloud your judgment. Then, she melted into the shadows. She didn't make a sound. She was just there one moment, and gone the next. I waited, my heart hammering in my chest. I had my earpiece in, but Serafina was maintaining complete silence. Minutes stretched into an eternity. I focused my own enhanced senses, listening. I heard the distant city traffic, the lapping of water against the pier. Nothing from the sniper nest. Then, a soft click in my ear. The watchmen are sleeping, Serafina's voice whispered. The path is clear. I took a deep breath and moved. I circled around to the back of the cannery, finding a rusted service door. It was locked, but a single, focused application of my Vitae-enhanced strength snapped the bolt. The interior of the cannery was a vast, cavernous space filled with the ghosts of old machinery. The air was thick with the smell of rust and decay. High above, catwalks crisscrossed the darkness. In the center of the floor, a single, harsh spotlight illuminated a small area. And in the center of that light, tied to a chair, was Jessica. She looked terrified, her face stained with tears. "Ryan?" she called out, her voice echoing in the huge space. I stepped out of the shadows. "I'm here, Jessica. You came," she breathed, a look of relief on her face. "Where is he?" I asked, scanning the surrounding darkness. "Where's the detective?" A slow, mocking clap started from the catwalks above. A figure stepped into the dim light. It wasn't the detective. It was the leader of the team from the alley, the one who had escaped. His arm was in a sling. "Welcome, Guardian," he sneered. "So glad you could make it. Lord Valerius is very eager to meet you." I knew it. It was all a setup. "Let her go," I said. "Your business is with me." "Oh, we will," he chuckled. "But first, the introductions." From the shadows behind him, a tall, imposing figure emerged. He was dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, his hair the color of polished obsidian. His face was aristocratic, handsome, but his eyes held a chilling emptiness, an ancient hunger. This was Lord Valerius. "The runaway bride and her new pet," Valerius said, his voice a smooth, cultured baritone that dripped with condescension. "You have caused me a great deal of trouble, Mr. Sterling." "I'm just getting started," I retorted. He smiled, a humorless stretching of his lips. Bravado. A common, and tedious, human trait. "Tell me, where is my betrothed? And where is my property?" "They're safe," I said. "And you're never getting them." "We shall see," Valerius said. He gestured to Jessica. "The woman. She truly betrayed you, you know. She came to us. Offered you up in exchange for wealth and protection. She planted the drugs herself." I looked at Jessica. She refused to meet my eyes, her face a mask of shame. The last, foolish flicker of hope that she was a victim died. She wasn't just a pawn, she was a willing player. "It doesn't matter," I said, my voice cold. Valerius sighed. "I had hoped to do this with a certain elegance. But you insist on being difficult." He snapped his fingers. From the darkness all around me, more figures emerged. At least a dozen Umbra vampires, their eyes glowing red in the gloom. They formed a circle around me. "Now," Valerius said from the catwalk. "This is how it ends." The circle of vampires closed in. I could feel the predatory energy in the room, a suffocating pressure. "You are surrounded, Guardian," Valerius's voice echoed from above. "Surrender my property, and I will grant you a swift end." "I don't think so," I said, dropping into a defensive stance. I let the vitae flow, encasing both my arms in the hard, black gauntlets. The Umbra warriors hesitated for a moment, seeing the manifestation of my power. "He is just one man," the lieutenant with the broken arm shouted. "Take him." Two of them charged at once, one from the front, one from the back. They were fast, much faster than ordinary humans. But the world slowed for me. I sidestepped the frontal assault, letting the vampire's momentum carry him past me. I spun, blocking a clawed strike from the second one with my gauntlet. The impact was like steel hitting steel. I didn't give him a chance to recover. I drove my other fist into his chest. The vitae-enhanced blow shattered his ribcage, sending him flying backward into another one of his comrades. The first one came at me again, his fangs bared in a snarl. I ducked under his wild swing and slammed my elbow into his jaw. The crunch of bone was audible even over the grunts and snarls. He crumpled to the floor. I was holding my own, but there were too many of them. For every one I knocked down, two more took his place. They were relentless, a pack of wolves tearing at a larger beast. A clawed hand raked across my back, tearing through my jacket and shirt, leaving burning trails of fire on my skin. I grunted in pain, spinning and lashing out with a backhand, sending the attacker stumbling away. "He's strong," one of them hissed, "but he is slow." They were right. I had the power, but they had the speed and experience. They began to coordinate their attacks, feinting and striking, trying to overwhelm my defenses. I was blocking and dodging, but I was on the defensive, being pushed back. "It seems your new power has its limits," Valerius mocked from the catwalk. Suddenly, the lights in the cannery flickered and went out. The entire space was plunged into absolute darkness. The only light came from the faint red glow of 24 vampire eyes. And they weren't all focused on me anymore. A collective gasp went through the Umbra warriors. A new sound entered the fray. A whisper of movement, too fast to track. One of the red glows vanished, followed by a wet, gurgling sound and the thud of a body hitting the floor. Then another. And another. Panic began to set in among the Umbra ranks. What's happening? Where is she? She's everywhere. A high-pitched scream was cut short. The lights flickered back on. The scene was one of carnage. Half of the Umbra warriors were dead on the floor, their throats torn out with surgical precision. And standing in the middle of them, untouched, was Serafina. Her eyes were blazing with a crimson fury I had never seen before. A fine mist of blood hung in the air around her. She was no longer the calm, composed princess. She was a predator, a queen of the night defending her territory. "Valerius," she said, her voice dangerously low and resonant with power. "You came to my city. You threatened what is mine." Up on the catwalk, Valerius's smug composure had finally cracked. He looked not at me, but at the carnage Serafina had wrought. "So, the little dove has claws," he sneered, but his voice held a new note of caution. The remaining Umbra warriors looked from Serafina to their lord, their confidence shattered. "Kill them both," Valerius roared. "What are you waiting for?" The vampires hesitated, their pack mentality broken by Serafina's terrifying display. That hesitation was all I needed. I lunged forward, no longer on the defensive. I punched one of the vampires so hard he flew through a brick wall, leaving a cartoonish hole behind. I grabbed another by the head and slammed him into the concrete floor until he stopped moving. Serafina moved like a dancer in a storm of violence, a whirlwind of death. The last of the Umbra warriors fell within seconds. Silence descended. It was just us and them. Valerius on the catwalk, his lieutenant beside him. And Jessica, still tied to the chair, weeping in terror. "It seems your pawns were not up to the task," Serafina said, her gaze fixed on Valerius. "No matter," Valerius snarled. "If you want something done right." He grabbed his lieutenant by the throat and lifted him off his feet. The lieutenant struggled, his eyes wide with shock and betrayal. "My lord, what are you doing?" "Fulfilling my purpose," Valerius said coldly. He sank his fangs into the lieutenant's neck. The man screamed, a horrific, drawn-out sound as his life force was drained away. Valerius's form seemed to swell with power, his muscles bulging, his eyes glowing with an intense, malevolent light. He dropped the desiccated husk of his follower to the floor. "Now," Valerius bellowed, his voice a monstrous roar. "Let us end this." He leapt from the catwalk 30 feet down, and landed on the concrete floor with the impact of a meteorite, cracking the ground beneath his feet. The real fight was about to begin. Valerius stood before us, transformed. He was bigger, his suit torn by his expanding muscles. Veins of black energy pulsed across his skin, and his eyes were no longer just red, but burning coals of pure hatred. "This is the power you denied me, Serafina," he roared. "The power to rule." He moved, and the air cracked around him. He wasn't just fast anymore, he was instantaneous. He appeared in front of Serafina, his hand outstretched, claws extended. She was fast, but he was faster. He backhanded her, sending her flying across the cannery to smash into a large piece of machinery with a sickening crunch. "Serafina!" I yelled. I charged him, my vitae-wrought fists ready. He turned to me, a cruel smirk on his face. The pet comes to the defense of its master. How touching. I threw a punch with all the force I could muster. He caught my fist in his palm, stopping it dead. The shockwave of the impact blew dust and debris away from us in a perfect circle. His grip was like a vice. "A fraction of a royal's power does not make you a royal, boy," he sneered. He squeezed. I felt the bones in my hand grind together, the vitae construct shattering like glass. I roared in pain and tried to pull away, but his grip was absolute. He lifted me off the ground with one hand and slammed me into the concrete floor. The world went white for a second. My ribs screamed in protest. He pinned me down with his foot, the pressure immense. "I will enjoy breaking you," he hissed, raising a clawed hand to finish me. Suddenly, a piece of heavy machinery, a massive gear the size of a car tire, flew through the air and slammed into Valerius's side. He staggered back, releasing me. Serafina was on her feet, her arm outstretched. She had thrown it with telekinesis. There was a gash on her forehead, and her arm was bent at an unnatural angle, but her eyes blazed with defiance. Your fight is with me, Valerius, she said, popping her arm back into its socket with a grimace. I scrambled to my feet, my hand a mess of broken bones. The pain was excruciating. Stay down, human, Valerius growled, turning his attention back to Serafina. The adults are talking. They clashed in the center of the room. It was a battle of gods. The air crackled with their power. Shockwaves from their blows shattered the remaining windows. Serafina was elegant and precise, a rapier against his sledgehammer. But Valerius was stronger, empowered by the life force he had just consumed. He was slowly, brutally, overpowering her. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't fight him head-on, not like this. He was in a different league. I needed to be smarter. I needed to be a detective. I looked around the battlefield, my eyes scanning for any advantage. My gaze fell on Jessica, still whimpering in the chair. Then I saw it. On the floor, near the husk of the Lieutenant Valerius had drained, was a briefcase. It must have fallen from the catwalk during the fight. The evidence. My mind raced. This was more than just clearing my name now. Whatever was in that briefcase, it was important to Valerius's human operations. It was a weakness. I forced myself to ignore the pain in my hand and started moving, staying low, using the debris for cover. Valerius slammed Serafina through a wall into an adjoining room. I heard her cry out in pain. He laughed, a triumphant, ugly sound. Your line has grown weak, old friend. It is time for a new king. He turned, probably to finish her off, and he saw me. He saw me reaching for the briefcase. His eyes widened in fury. The fly still buzzes. He charged at me, but I was already there. I scooped up the briefcase. He was almost on top of me, a clawed hand reaching for my throat. I did the only thing I could think of. I threw the briefcase. Not at him, but toward Jessica. Jessica, catch! I yelled. Her eyes widened. She fumbled but managed to catch it. Valerius skidded to a halt, his attention now split between me, the briefcase, and the incapacitated Serafina. He was powerful, but he couldn't be in 3 places at once. Give that to me, you worthless creature, he snarled at Jessica. Jessica looked at the briefcase in her hands, then at me, then at the monster before her. For the first time, a flicker of something other than selfish fear appeared in her eyes. He's right, she stammered, looking at me. He has everything. The files, the recordings. He can clear you. It doesn't matter anymore, Jessica, I said, my voice steady. Just get out of here. Run. Valerius took a step toward her. I wouldn't do that, I said, stepping between them. I focused all my remaining energy, all the vitae I could draw from the weakened Serafina. A blade of pure black energy, longer and sharper than any I had formed before, materialized in my good hand. You can't beat me, Valerius laughed. I don't have to beat you, I said, a desperate plan forming in my mind. I just have to slow you down. I looked past him, to the massive, rusting chemical vats that lined the far wall of the cannery. Old, forgotten, but maybe not empty. I charged, not at him, but past him. He swatted at me, his claws tearing into my shoulder, but I pushed through the pain. I reached the vats and plunged my shadow blade into the side of the nearest one. A thick, acrid-smelling liquid began to pour out. I stabbed the next one, and the next. What are you doing? Valerius demanded, confused. Changing the battlefield, I grunted, stabbing one last vat. The flammable, corrosive chemicals began to pool on the floor. I looked up at a junction box on the wall, sparks flying from a cable damaged in the fight. Serafina, I yelled. Get ready to move. I ran toward where I'd last seen her, toward the hole in the wall. Valerius realized what I was planning. He roared in fury and bounded after me. The sparks from the junction box fell, igniting the chemical soup. A wave of fire erupted, a flash flood of blue and orange flames that raced across the cannery floor. The world exploded. The force of the explosion threw me through the hole in the wall. I landed hard on the other side, the breath knocked out of me. The roar of the inferno was deafening. The entire cannery was a sea of fire. I pushed myself up, my body screaming in protest. My shoulder was on fire, my hand was a wreck, but I was alive. I saw Serafina a few feet away, struggling to rise. The blast had shielded her from the worst of it. I rushed to her side, helping her up. Are you okay? I asked, shouting over the flames. I will heal, she said, wincing as she put weight on her leg. What did you do? I improvised, I said. We looked back into the main room. Valerius stood in the heart of the inferno, wreathed in flames. The fire was burning him, his skin blistering and blackening, but he wasn't dying. He was roaring in pain and fury, a monster trapped in a cage of his own making. The fire won't kill him, Serafina said. But it will weaken him. Hold him. What about Jessica? I asked, my eyes scanning the room. I saw her. She had managed to untie herself and was scrambling away from the fire near an emergency exit, still clutching the briefcase. Our eyes met across the flames. She hesitated for a second, then turned and fled into the night. She was gone. And she had the evidence. A part of me, the old me, felt a pang of loss. But the rest of me just felt relief. That chapter of my life was finally, truly over. We need to go, Serafina urged, pulling on my arm. Before he recovers. We stumbled through the back rooms of the cannery, finding our way out into the cool night air just as the first sirens began to wail in the distance. We didn't look back. We got to the SUV and drove, melting back into the city's anonymous traffic. The drive back to the monastery was a quiet one. We were both injured, exhausted, and we had just barely survived. We didn't win, I said finally, breaking the silence. No, Serafina agreed. But we didn't lose. We took his prize, and we survived his wrath. In the long game, that is a victory. When we arrived back at the monastery, the first thing we did was tend to our wounds. Serafina's healing was already well underway. Her advanced physiology was knitting bone and tissue at a remarkable rate. My own healing was slower, but still unnaturally fast. The bond I shared with her was mending my broken bones and sealing the gashes on my back and shoulder. You fought bravely, Ryan Sterling, she said, as she helped me wrap my broken hand. Her touch was gentle, her proximity sending a strange warmth through me that had nothing to do with the Vitae. I just got my butt kicked, I grumbled. You faced a vampire lord and lived to tell the tale. Few can claim that. He's still out there, I said. And now he's really angry. Indeed. He will hunt us with a vengeance we have not yet seen. He has been humiliated. I looked at the sanguine heart, which was still resting on the altar, its dark light a constant, malevolent presence in the room. What do we do now? We can't just hide here forever. No, we cannot, she agreed. Valerius has human assets. A detective. Perhaps more. He has infiltrated the systems of your world. We must do the same. How? We must build our own network. Find allies. The kindred world is not monolithic. Not all houses support Umbra's ambitions. There are those who value the balance, who would see Valerius fall. She looked at me, her crimson eyes serious. But to do that, I must reach out to them. And I cannot do that while I am in hiding. It is time for me to return to my house. My heart sank a little at the thought. You're leaving? We are leaving, she corrected. House Nocturne's primary seat is in Europe. A city your people call Prague. We will be safer there, with the full strength of my house to protect us. Prague, I said, the name sounding impossibly distant. How are we supposed to get an SUV and a vampire artifact across the ocean? Quote. A rare, mischievous smile played on her lips. I told you, Ryan. My family has resources. She led me to another part of the monastery, a large chamber that I had assumed was a stable. She pulled a heavy canvas sheet aside. Underneath was not a car, but a sleek, matte black private jet. I stared at it, my jaw hanging open. You have got to be kidding me. The Nocturne family has always believed in traveling in style, she said simply. My guardian, our fight has just begun. It is time to take the battle to them. The flight to Prague was surreal. I had never been on a private jet before, let alone one that was apparently centuries old but outfitted with modern technology. We flew at night, Serafina's preference, crossing the Atlantic under a blanket of stars. The sanguine heart was secured in a special, lead-lined compartment. I spent most of the flight sleeping, my body using the time to heal. When I awoke, the aches and pains were gone. My hand, while still tender, was fully functional. The gash on my shoulder was nothing but a faint, pink scar. Serafina was watching me as I stretched, a curious look on her face. Your recovery rate is remarkable, she commented. The bond grows stronger. I feel it, I admitted. The power. It feels closer to the surface. More natural. You are adapting. Changing. Becoming more than you were. The thought was both exhilarating and terrifying. We landed at a private airfield outside Prague as the moon was high in the sky. The city was a fairy tale of Gothic spires and ancient stone, a place that seemed perfectly suited for a vampire princess. A black, armored limousine was waiting for us on the tarmac. The driver was a mountain of a man named Gregor, whose stoic silence made him seem more like a golem than a human. Gregor is one of my family's sworn servants, Serafina explained. His line has served House Nocturne for 500 years. The idea of a family having servants for 5 centuries was mind-boggling. We drove into the city, to a district of old, aristocratic manors. The limousine pulled through a set of imposing iron gates and into the courtyard of a sprawling, Gothic estate that looked more like a castle than a house. This was the seat of House Nocturne. As we stepped out of the car, the massive doors of the manor opened. An elderly man with a severe face and impeccably dressed in a modern butler's uniform stood waiting. "Princess Serafina," he said, bowing deeply. "You have been away too long. Your father is waiting." "Thank you, Alistair," she said, her tone more formal than I was used to. We were led into the manor. The interior was a breathtaking display of old-world wealth and power. Dark wood, rich tapestries, priceless works of art. It was like walking into a museum. Alistair led us to a large, book-lined study. A man stood by the fireplace, his back to us. He was tall and slender, with the same silver hair as Serafina. When he turned, I was struck by his ageless face and the sheer intensity of his crimson eyes. This was Lord Cassian Nocturne, Serafina's father and the head of the house. "Father," Serafina said, inclining her head respectfully. "You return with a stray," Cassian said, his gaze falling on me. It was not a welcoming look. His eyes were ancient, and they seemed to weigh and measure every part of my soul. "This is Ryan Sterling," Serafina said. "He is my guardian. He saved my life." Cassian's gaze sharpened. "A guardian? The oath has not been awakened in our line for 1,000 years. And it chose him?" His disdain was palpable. "The oath chose him for his courage," Serafina replied, her voice firm. "I see," Cassian said, circling me like a shark. "And what do you see in him, daughter? A protector? Or a pet?" "Father, you go too far." "Do I? You bring this mortal into our home, into our world. You have brought the wrath of Valerius down upon us. And for what?" He stopped in front of me, his eyes boring into mine. "Tell me, Ryan Sterling, former police officer. Disgraced, I understand. What makes you worthy of my daughter's protection?" I met his gaze without flinching. "I was there when she needed help. That's all." "A simple answer," Cassian mused. "Perhaps you are too simple for the world you have stumbled into." He turned back to Serafina. "Valerius has declared open war on our house. His agents have been striking at our assets across the globe. He is hunting for the heart. What have you done with it?" "It is safe," Serafina said. "We brought it with us." Cassian's eyes widened slightly. "You brought that cursed thing here? Into my home?" "It is safer here than anywhere else in the world," she insisted. He was silent for a long moment, his face a mask of cold fury. "Alistair," he said finally. "Show Mr. Sterling to a room. My daughter and I have much to discuss." Alistair appeared at my side. "This way, sir." I glanced at Serafina. She gave me a subtle nod, a silent reassurance. I followed the butler out of the study, leaving father and daughter alone. The welcome party was officially over. It was clear that Serafina's father did not approve of me. I wasn't just a guardian, I was an unwelcome complication in a very old, very dangerous family. My room was larger than my entire old apartment. It was furnished with antiques that probably cost more than I'd earned in my entire life. Despite the luxury, it felt like a gilded cage. I spent the next day exploring the manor, or at least the parts one was allowed in. The place was a fortress, ancient and modern defenses woven together seamlessly. The staff, a mix of humans like Gregor and Alistair and a few vampires, moved with quiet efficiency. They were polite but distant. I was an outsider, an anomaly they didn't know how to categorize. I saw little of Serafina. She was locked in meetings with her father and the other elders of House Nocturne. When I did see her, she looked stressed, the weight of her responsibilities pressing down on her. On the second night, she came to my room. I am sorry for my father's behavior, she said, closing the door behind her. He is protective and old-fashioned. He thinks I'm a mistake, I said bluntly. He is cautious, she corrected. He does not understand the bond we share. He does not understand you. Does he want me to leave? She shook her head. No. Whether he likes it or not, you are my guardian. Your place is by my side. But he intends to test you. Test me? How? He does not believe a human can truly protect me. He wants you to prove your worth in their way. A trial by combat. I stared at her. He wants me to fight one of your people? He wants you to fight our best, she said, her voice grim. Lucius. The master at arms for House Nocturne. He has trained our warriors for 3 centuries. A 300-year-old vampire warrior. No pressure. When? Tomorrow at dawn. Serafina, I'm not a warrior. I'm a cop. I survived against Valerius by blowing the place up. I know, she said, her expression softening. And I have told him this is foolish. But his mind is set. To refuse is to show weakness. It would undermine my position and yours. She stepped closer. You are not the same man you were, Ryan. The power in you is growing. You are stronger than you know. I hope you're right, I said. She placed a hand on my chest, right over my heart. The oath is not just about power. It is about will. It is about the unbreakable resolve to protect. That is your true weapon. Do not forget it. The next morning, I was led to a large, stone-paved training yard at the back of the manor. Lord Cassian and a half-dozen other stern-looking vampires stood on a raised dais, watching. Serafina stood with them, her face a neutral mask, but I could see the worry in her eyes. In the center of the yard stood Lucius. He was tall and whipcord lean, with long black hair tied back from a face covered in faded battle scars. He wore simple leather training gear and carried a pair of wicked-looking wooden practice swords. He radiated a calm, deadly confidence. The human, Lucius said, his voice like gravel. He tossed one of the swords at my feet. Pick it up. Let us see what the princess's new pet can do. I picked up the sword. It felt heavy and awkward in my hand. I had some training with a nightstick, but this was different. The rules are simple, Lucius said, giving his own sword a lazy twirl. First to yield, or be disarmed, loses. Try not to die. I took a deep breath, trying to remember Serafina's words. Will. Resolve. I let the vitae flow, not into gauntlets or blades, but throughout my entire body, enhancing my speed, my strength, my senses. The world sharpened. I could see the grain in the wood of Lucius's sword, the twitch of a muscle in his arm. Ready? He asked, a predatory grin spreading across his face. I nodded. He attacked. He moved like lightning, his sword a blur aimed at my head. I reacted on pure instinct, bringing my sword up to block. The clash of wood on wood echoed through the yard. The impact jarred my entire arm. He was impossibly strong. He didn't give me a moment to recover. He flowed into another attack, then another, a relentless flurry of strikes from all angles. I was completely on the defensive, blocking, parrying, dodging. It was all I could do to keep from being overwhelmed. He was toying with me, I realized. He could have ended this at any moment. He was testing my defenses, seeing how I would react. You are clumsy, he grunted, his sword smacking against mine. Your footwork is atrocious. But your reflexes, they are impressive. I grit my teeth, sweat pouring down my face. I couldn't win a sword fight with him. I had to change the game. I needed to be a cop, a detective. I needed to be smart. I let him press his attack, deliberately giving ground, backing up toward the edge of the training yard. He saw it as a sign of weakness, of my imminent defeat. His attacks became more aggressive, less guarded. He lunged, a powerful thrust meant to disarm me. That was the opening I was waiting for. Instead of blocking, I dropped my sword. I sidestepped his thrust, letting his momentum carry him past me. As he went by, I dropped low and swept his legs out from under him. It was a classic police takedown maneuver. He wasn't expecting it. He, a 300-year-old master of swordsmanship, was tripped up by a simple street fighting move. He hit the ground hard, his arrogance turning to shock. I didn't give him a chance to get up. I pounced on him, my knee on his chest, my forearm against his throat. I summoned the vitae, not into a weapon, but into my grip, making it like iron. He was pinned. He struggled, his vampire strength immense, but my position gave me leverage. He couldn't break my hold. The training yard was silent. Everyone, including Lord Cassian, was staring in stunned disbelief. I had won. Not with skill, but with ingenuity. I looked him in the eyes, my heart pounding. I yield, Lucius rasped, his pride wounded but his honor intact. I released him and stood up, breathing heavily. I turned to face the dais. Lord Cassian was looking at me with a new expression. The disdain was gone, replaced by a grudging respect. Serafina was smiling. A genuine, proud smile. I had passed the test. My victory in the training yard changed things. The attitude of the manor's inhabitants shifted from suspicion to a grudging acceptance. Even Lord Cassian started treating me with a measure of respect, occasionally including me in his strategic briefings. Lucius, the master at arms, took a particular interest in me. "You have the raw power," he told me one afternoon. "But you fight like a brawler. That will not be enough." He began training me personally. Every day, we would spar for hours. He taught me swordplay, hand-to-hand combat, how to fight like a kindred warrior. He was a brutal, relentless teacher, but I learned quickly. My body, enhanced by the bond, absorbed the lessons at an incredible rate. My movements became more fluid, my strikes more precise. I learned to weave my Vitae abilities into my fighting style, forming a shield one moment, a blade the next, adapting to the flow of combat. Serafina and I grew closer during this time. With the immediate threat of Valerius gone, we had moments of peace. We would walk the ancient gardens of the estate at night, under the moonlight. She told me stories of her long life, of the history of her people. I told her about my life, my family, my dreams before everything fell apart. We came from two different worlds, two different species, but we found common ground in our shared sense of duty and our isolation. "You are the only one who truly understands," she told me one night. "The only one who has seen both sides of my life. The princess and the warrior." "I'm just glad I get to see both," I replied. An unspoken connection was growing between us, deeper than the guardian's oath. But our peace was not to last. A message arrived from one of House Nocturne's spies. Valerius had resurfaced. He was in Rome, meeting with the heads of other powerful vampire houses, trying to forge an alliance. "He is using the loss of the Sanguine Heart to his advantage," Cassian explained in a war council meeting. "He is painting us as hoarders of power, as a threat to the established order. He is gathering support for a full-scale war. We cannot allow that to happen," Serafina said. "We must counter his narrative. We must attend this council." "It is a trap," Lucius warned. "He is luring you into neutral territory." "The conclave is sacred," Cassian mused. "There can be no open violence within its halls. But Valerius does not play by the rules." "Then I will not go alone," Serafina said, her eyes finding mine across the room. "My guardian will accompany me." Cassian nodded slowly. "He has proven his worth. He will go." And so, we prepared for another journey. This time, to Rome, the eternal city, for a conclave of the most powerful vampires in the world. We were no longer running. We were walking into the heart of our enemy's territory to fight a political war. The stakes were higher than ever. The fate of the kindred, and perhaps the human world, rested on what would happen in Rome. Rome was a city that wore its history like a shroud. The vampire conclave was being held in the catacombs beneath a forgotten church, a place of ancient power and deep secrets. We arrived with a small, elite delegation from House Nocturne, including Lucius. The atmosphere in the catacombs was thick with tension. The air hummed with the power of the ancient vampires gathered there. Leaders of houses from all over the world were present, their faces like masks from a forgotten age. Valerius was already there, holding court. He looked fully recovered from our last encounter, though a network of fine, silvery scars covered one side of his face, a permanent reminder of the cannery fire. His eyes locked onto ours as we entered. A slow, hateful smile spread across his lips. He was flanked by allies, powerful-looking vampires who watched us with open hostility. The conclave was presided over by a council of 3 ancient elders, vampires so old they were spoken of only in legends. They sat on thrones carved from the catacomb rock, their eyes holding the wisdom and weariness of millennia. Lord Cassian, one of the elders, spoke, her voice like the rustle of dry leaves. "You have requested this audience. State your purpose. Cassian stepped forward. Elders, I have come to warn you. Lord Valerius of House Umbra has broken the ancient accords. He seeks to enslave our kind and wage war upon the human world. A murmur went through the assembled vampires. Valerius laughed, a rich, mocking sound. Cassian speaks of breaking accords? He, who hoards the sanguine heart for himself. He seeks to become the god king he accuses me of wanting to be. The accusation hung in the air. Many of the gathered lords looked at Cassian with new suspicion. We do not hoard it, Serafina said, stepping forward, her voice ringing with authority. We protect it. We protect all of you from a power no one should wield. The words of a child, trying to hold on to her father's power, Valerius retorted. She speaks of protection, yet she binds a human to her side. A mongrel. An abomination against our kind. All eyes turned to me. I stood beside Serafina, my hand resting near the hilt of the sword Lucius had given me. I could feel their hatred, their prejudice. This human is my sworn guardian, Serafina declared. His heart is nobler than yours, Valerius. He proves that strength is not limited to our blood. Enough, the second elder commanded. We are not here to debate the merits of house pets. This is the point, Valerius insisted, his voice rising. House Nocturne has grown decadent, weak. They embrace humanity, they forget their own strength. I offer a new way. A stronger way. A world where we no longer hide in the shadows. His words were seductive, appealing to the pride and ambition of the assembled houses. He was winning them over. We were losing the political battle. Then, a new voice cut through the tension. Lord Valerius speaks of strength. Let me tell you about his strength. A figure emerged from the shadows at the edge of the chamber. It was a woman, her face pale and drawn, but her eyes burning with a cold fire. It took me a moment to recognize her. It was Jessica. A collective gasp went through the conclave. A human, here, in their most sacred of meeting places. It was unheard of. Valerius's face, for the first time, showed a flicker of genuine shock and fury. What is the meaning of this? He demanded. Jessica ignored him. She was holding a tablet, and she projected its contents onto the flat wall of the catacomb. It was a video file. The video showed the detective I'd found her with, the one who worked for Valerius. He was in an interrogation room, looking terrified. His recorded voice filled the chamber. He made me do it, the detective said. Lord Valerius. He has agents in police departments, governments, corporations all over the world. He's been building a shadow empire for decades. He forced me to frame Officer Sterling. He wanted him out of the way. The video continued, the detective spilling every secret he knew about Valerius's operations, his infiltration of human institutions, his plans to destabilize world governments. Jessica had done it. She had used the evidence in the briefcase not just to clear my name, but to expose Valerius's entire conspiracy. She lies. Valerius roared. This is a trick. A human deception. Is it? Jessica said, her voice shaking but firm. I was one of your human agents, Valerius. You promised me power. But all you brought was fear and death. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a complex mix of regret and resolve. I did what you asked, Ryan, she said softly. I ran. And I exposed the truth. My truth, and yours. The vampire lords were murmuring, looking at Valerius with doubt and alarm. His plans went far beyond just vampire politics. He was a threat to their secrecy, to their very existence. Valerius saw he was losing. His political gamble had failed. So he resorted to the only thing he had left. Violence. With an inhuman roar, he lunged, not at me, or Cassian, but at the eldest of the elders, the one who seemed to be the most powerful. He was trying to decapitate the conclave's leadership in one swift move. But he had forgotten about me. I moved without thinking. The world slowed. I drew my sword, the steel ringing in the silent chamber. I intercepted his charge, my blade meeting his claws in a shower of sparks. The force of the impact sent a tremor up my arm, but I held my ground. You, he snarled, his face inches from mine. I should have killed you when I had the chance. You tried, I said, gritting my teeth. The chamber erupted into chaos. Lucius and the Nocturne guards engaged Valerius's allies. The other houses scrambled, some drawing weapons, others trying to flee. The elders rose from their thrones, their ancient power flaring to life, creating a shimmering barrier around the main chamber to contain the fighting. My fight was with Valerius. He was a whirlwind of fury, his claws slashing, his fangs bared. But I was not the same man he'd fought in the cannery. I was trained. I was focused. I met his every blow, my sword an extension of my will, the vitae flowing through me, giving me the speed and strength to match him. We were evenly matched. A lord of a great house against a human who had been given a second chance. He was stronger, but I was more determined. He was fueled by ambition, but I was fueled by a promise. An oath. I saw an opening. He overextended on a strike, leaving his side exposed for a fraction of a second. I didn't hesitate. I ducked under his arm and thrust my sword deep into his side. He roared in pain and rage, stumbling back, the sword still embedded in him. He looked down at the blade, then at me, his eyes filled with disbelief. A human, he choked out. Looks that way, I said. With a final, desperate surge of strength, he pulled my sword from his side and threw it away. The wound was grievous, a black, viscous blood pouring from it, but it wasn't fatal. He lunged at me, weaponless but still deadly. I didn't back down. I met his charge, and as his claws reached for my throat, I did something he never expected. I focused all of the oath's power, all of the vitae I could summon, not into a weapon, but into a single, devastating pulse of pure energy. It erupted from my chest, a concussive blast of black light. It struck Valerius point blank. He was thrown backward, his body convulsing, the dark energy of the oath overwhelming his own. He crashed against the far wall of the catacomb and slid to the floor, smoke rising from his body. He was defeated. Silence fell over the chamber. The fighting had stopped. Everyone was staring at me, at the human who had just defeated one of the most powerful vampire lords in the world. I stood there, breathing heavily, the last of the vitae energy receding. Serafina rushed to my side. "Ryan, are you hurt?" "I'm fine," I said, though my body felt like it had been torn apart and put back together. I looked over at Jessica, who was being shielded by Lucius. She gave me a small, sad smile. Her part in this was over. She had found her own kind of redemption. The eldest of the elders stepped forward, her ancient eyes fixed on me. "The human has saved us all," she declared, her voice echoing in the silent chamber. "The threat of Valerius is ended. House Umbra will be restructured." It was over. We had won. In the aftermath of the conclave, the vampire world was thrown into a quiet turmoil. House Umbra was dismantled, its assets divided among the other houses, its leadership replaced by those loyal to the elders. Valerius was not killed. He was sentenced to a fate worse than death for a creature of his pride, imprisonment in a timeless, sunless prison, to be forgotten by the world. Jessica was granted safe passage back to the human world, her involvement in the conclave erased from all records. Before she left, she spoke to me one last time. "My name is cleared," she said. The real evidence came to light. The detective confessed to everything before he disappeared. "You're officially exonerated." "Thank you, Jessica," I said. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you found your way." "You too, Ryan," she said, her eyes glancing toward Serafina, who stood a respectful distance away. "It looks like you found a new precinct to protect." She walked away, out of my life for good. My old life was well and truly over. My name was clear, but I could never go back. I didn't want to. My place was here now, in this new world of shadows and ancient secrets. My place was with Serafina. We returned to Prague, not as fugitives, but as heroes. Lord Cassian greeted me not as a stray, but as a son. "You have honored my house, Ryan Sterling," he said, placing a hand on my shoulder. "You have proven your worth beyond all doubt." Life at the Nocturne Manor settled into a new kind of normal. The threat was gone, but the work was not. Serafina, with her newfound political clout, began working to build bridges between the vampire houses, ensuring a war like the one Valerius wanted could never happen. And I was always by her side. I continued my training with Lucius, honing my skills, mastering the power of the oath. I was no longer just a guardian. I was a warrior, a diplomat, a trusted advisor to House Nocturne. One evening, Serafina and I stood on a balcony overlooking the city of Prague. The sky was a deep velvet, dotted with stars. "It's quiet," I said. For now, she replied, a small smile on her lips. The world is never truly quiet. There will always be new threats, new challenges. Well, that's what I'm here for, I said. She turned to me, her crimson eyes soft in the moonlight. The oath bound you to me out of duty, she said. But what I feel for you, it is not duty. It is not the bond. She took my hand. In my long life, Ryan, I have known power and politics and loneliness. You have taught me about courage and sacrifice and partnership. My heart, a heart that had been broken and betrayed, felt a warmth that had nothing to do with supernatural power. I was a disgraced cop with nothing left to lose, I said, my voice thick with emotion. You gave me a new life. A new purpose. And you, she whispered, stepping closer, gave me a reason to truly live it. She leaned in and kissed me. It was a kiss that sealed more than just a bond of magic. It was a promise. A new beginning. My name is Ryan Sterling. I was a cop. I was betrayed. I lost everything. But in the darkest alley of my life, I found a silver-haired princess. I became her guardian, her partner, her knight. My old life is a ghost, a story I might one day tell our children. This new life, a life of shadows and moonlight, of duty and love, this is my reality. And for the first time since I could remember, I was exactly where I was supposed to be.